points, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists last season. Celtics went to the Eastern Conference Finals for a second straight year. Also grabbing a max bag, Donovan Mitchell. The Jazz guard getting that same 5-year, $163 million extension. Again, that could balloon to $195 if he reaches All-NBA status. The 24-year-old averaged 24 points a game last season, and then he dropped 2 50-point games during Utah's 7-game series loss to Denver in this year's playoffs. So all total, you have 4 players from the 2017 draft class who have scored more than 3,000 points in their young NBA careers. And now 3 of them have agreed to rookie Supermax extensions with those same squads. The number 1 pick from that year, Markelle Fultz, well, he's no longer with the team that drafted him. Well, with us, though, is the aforementioned Adrian Wojnarowski. And, what would I say to most NBA fans? They look at these deals. They felt like no-brainers for both the player and the squads. But let's start with Mitchell and the reason that he wanted to stay in Utah, and they were doing everything to keep him.
Yeah, there's a great relationship there with Donovan Mitchell, not just that organization, but that community. And he came to them right at the draft, right before Gordon Hayward left in free agency. That was a wounded city. And immediately he gave them hope. And they realized very quickly they had a superstar and a player to build around. And now he comes back. You saw what he did in the bubble. And a player that really has blossomed, you've seen as a man. And you see him at the forefront of the social justice movement this summer in the league. And he's had a strong voice with that in that Salt Lake community. And you'll see a lot of that going forward. And he's just the kind of person that new ownership there, Ryan Smith, their front office, that they want to build around.
We often talk about players that are face of the franchise. He's definitely that there in Salt Lake City. All right, but let's go over to Boston. Jayson Tatum, I mean, he really emerged as a star this past season. Granted, they got some young talent in that squad, but that seems to be the building piece for this team going ahead.
Absolutely, especially you've seen some stars come and go from Boston. True. Max players, Kyrie Irving, Al Horford, and then Gordon Hayward. But Jayson Tatum is the player now, 5 years, close to $200 million, like Mitchell, with one more All-Star appearance. And you've already seen with Tatum, he is a player. He can be the best player on a championship team. And, for this Celtic organization with such a history of great ones, he's one you imagine up in the rafters someday. It's not easy to get your number up there, but you imagine it up there. And he's now, for them, with Jaylen Brown and, this, young core they have, he's the centerpiece. Yeah, give a lot of credit to Danny Ainge, not only just drafting Jayson Tatum out of Duke, but realizing that he could be a cornerstone for this organization going forward. Woj, as always, appreciate the time, brother. Thanks, Mike.
All right.
This is everything, and I'm going to tell you why. Because if you're in a place like Oklahoma City, you're probably not going to get free agents. The only way you're going to get players is through the draft and through trades. So this is what these draft picks are, the chance to draft those players or trade them for players. And Zach was just talking about the Thunder getting second-round picks in the next few days. Watch him get another first-round pick, especially if they can participate in a sign-and-trade for Danilo Gallinari. He's not going to be back in Oklahoma City, but they could send him elsewhere. This is team building 101, but it's almost like team building 101.2 or something because he's doing this to such an extent.
I mean, even down to the level that the year or so that you're going to probably suck, which is next year, they're not even going to have fans. I mean, that's beautiful. This is basically what Sam Hinkie was trying to do in Philadelphia, which is get as many draft picks as you possibly can, give yourself as many chances to hit on those draft picks, whether they be in the teens or at the top of the draft. Well, next year, the Thunder are probably not going to be as good, probably a couple of years here, but at some point, you become a good, nice young destination with good young players that people might want to go to, and then you have all the first-round picks. I feel like Adam Silver is going to be announcing, and with the 10th pick, yes, you guessed it, the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Sam Presti.
That's going to happen every year for the next few years.
Well, Ramona, I like the point you made about the process. I think it's something that we don't quite hit on enough when we talk about Philadelphia, that Sam Hinkie's original vision included the fact that when you are drafting 18 and 19-year-old kids, you are just not going to know for sure what they are going to turn into in 3 or 4 years. So the idea isn't just get picks near the top of the draft or in the first round. The idea was get as many as you can. So that even if you only bat, in baseball terms, 300 or 400, if you have so many shots being at the plate, so many ups, you are going to get, say, in Philadelphia, end up with a Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, 2 young all-stars locked in on those contracts. And look, Philadelphia, they whiffed on a bunch of those early picks. But again, when you have as many picks as Philly amassed during that process, and as much as Sam Hinkie has amassed here, you have the chance of getting those young players that you really, really want and can hit on. Paul, if you were on that team over the next few years, how would you approach it in terms of proving yourself to the Oklahoma City Brass? Because remember, they're going to have new players coming in with all these draft picks every year, and also to make your name for yourself, maybe to shop yourself to other teams around the league.
Well, I think there's tremendous opportunity there, especially for a kid like Shea Gilchrist. You know, he's a young star. He has this opportunity with a Chris Paul gone. And the guys there, they know this. They understand their situation. There's going to be new players coming in and out until they find the right cornerstone players that's going to be there for years to come. Now is the opportunity for you to establish yourself as one of those cornerstone players or that player that you can say, hey, you know, he really represents what we are as a franchise as far as hard work and what we do in the community. So now is the opportunity because they know that players are going to be coming in and year out, having that opportunity also. This is everything for OKC. You know, until they find those cornerstone guys, they're going to just keep rolling the dice, and they have plenty of opportunities to do that.
So many opportunities. I want to move over to the Knicks. They cleared up $35 million in cap space, and we know they have been hunting for stars in recent years. Brian, so many times they have created cap space that has not led to anything, but it sure felt like this week that these were some smarter moves. They made a good draft pick, and I don't know, I look at that $35 million and Gordon Hayward just opted out for $34 million. Is the Knicks creating this room something, nothing, or everything?
Yeah, I think it's something for sure. I mean, look, the Knicks realize that salary cap space is in high demand right now. There's not going to be much of it, especially after the Hawks make a move or two. And I think if you look at what they've done the last couple days, making a bunch of trades on draft night to move around to get their picks, and then making a move yesterday to take on a player, Ed Davis, where they picked up a couple more draft picks. It looks like they're trying to be strategic. Now, that doesn't mean that if a star all of a sudden doesn't become available, they're not going to grab them. But I think they're going to try to be strategic because, quite frankly, next year's draft and next year's free agent class are better than this year's. So going swinging big right now may not be the smart move. And by the way, there's a whole bunch of teams competing in the East. It may not be the worst year to not try to fight for the 8th seed. I know that's not what Knicks fans maybe want to hear, but I do think it's the prudent way of going about it. And so far, Leon Rose and his front office looks like they're following that path.
Yeah, I agree with Brian. I think the Ed Davis salary dump to get those seconds was a great move. Remember, the Knicks missed a chance to do that with Andre Iguodala last year when the Warriors needed to dump him. Memphis got a first-round pick. Detroit just got a first-round pick for taking on Trevor Ariza. I think the Knicks should look at moves like that, stockpile the draft picks. That said, the one exception that I wonder if they're thinking about is not Gordon Hayward. I'm sure they're thinking about Gordon Hayward, but I kind of like the fit of Fred VanVleet for them instead. I know Woj reported earlier he's most likely to go back to Toronto. I've been reporting that the whole time. I think that's true. I just think the Knicks, they're young players. Their growth is going to be stunted until the Knicks get a real point guard. And Frank Ntilikina has made some progress, but I think he's more a Patrick Beverley kind of point guard, like an off-ball spot-up guy, than the engine of an offense. And I just think Kevin Knox, R.J. Barrett, Mitchell Robinson would benefit so much from them getting a veteran, leader, selfless kind of guy. So if I were them, I would look at Fred VanVleet, but I don't know what they're going to do. They do seem to be acting prudently, which I like.
Well, look, we've all heard the Gordon Hayward supposition, right? I think there's a couple other teams that are not being mentioned for Gordon Hayward just because of they don't have salary cap space. But remember, there's other ways for him to go places. Like if he wanted to go to an Indiana, they could do a sign and trade. That's something that's floating out there right now. But I think with the Knicks, all that salary cap space, you could throw an offer at KCP. You could throw an offer at Bogdanovich. You could throw an offer at VanVleet. You can just make teams that are trying to retain their own free agents uncomfortable. And maybe you might get one of these guys, or maybe you become the third team in a sign and trade that picks up a draft pick because you're able to absorb some of that salary.
Yeah, Paul, this idea of, hey, taking a reasoned, measured approach, not trying to force your way into the East in a year where all these teams really have so much skin in the game. Do you recognize this Knicks team? How do you feel about this?
No,
pretty
I don't
nice to see, right?
I mean, you know, they've done better with this draft, but the cap room,